Hey, Katie.
Hi, Ben.
So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the Vickery auction, which is an auction that Google uses in AdWords.
That's right. This is a continuation of what we started talking about in the last episode, which was all about auctions and how auctions are used to solve the problem of selling internet ad space. So, if you haven't listened to that one yet, maybe go back, give it a quick listen, because all of this is going to make a lot more sense.
You are listening to Linear Digressions. Great. So, in the last episode, we talked about Google AdWords and the ways in which we started talking about the ways in which businesses can participate in this auction to figure out who of all those businesses gets that ad space that pops up when you go to google.com and search for something like podcasting microphone, which is what I just did. And we also talked about an English auction, which is a type of auction that you probably imagine or you've seen in movies where you've got a person up on a stage talking to a bunch of other people, and people are saying, yes, I'm willing to go higher. Yes, I'm willing to go higher. And then eventually you get the going once, going twice sold to the, lady in black at the back. There are a lot of problems with that, and we kind of summarized those in the last episode, but the problems are winner's curse, where someone bids too high in the heat of the moment. What was it called? Something sniping?
Bid sniping.
Yeah, bid sniping, where you get your legs cut out from under you in the last 5 seconds, and you're like, no, darn it, I wanted it. I would go higher, but this person got to it first. And what was the third one, Katie?
It was the gamesmanship that you can have when people are bidding on these things, that I have an incentive to act like something is less valuable to me than it actually is in order to try to get a better price for it.
So everybody's bluffing.
Yeah, that there's this, I wouldn't go a penny higher than this, when actually you would. You might go a lot higher, but you're sort of acting like you wouldn't in order to get a better price.
Right, so all of these problems are definitely problems you want to avoid if you're setting up a system like Google AdWords. And so, of course, they don't use an English auction kind of style. They use what's called a Vickery auction.
A Vickery auction, that's right. Or it's also sometimes called a sealed second price bid auction. And so the way that this works, this is actually significantly different. It sounds kind of weird at first, but it ends up working out really nicely. So the way that this works is, imagine something that now has the paradigm of kind of like a silent auction. Have you ever done one of those?
Yeah, where there's a piece of paper and you can kind of walk over, look at the item, decide you want to buy something, and you write your name on a piece of paper, and you just bid something that's higher than the person above you.
Right. So let's imagine something that's kind of like that, only instead of seeing a list of all the people and what they've already bid, it's a basket, and you write your bid on a piece of paper and you put it into the basket without being able to see what the other people have bid on it.
Oh, okay. So you're not bidding a higher number than the person previous. You're just saying, this is what I'm willing to pay, period. And you don't get any information about what other people have bid.
Right. So you get one bid, and you don't have any information, that's right, about what anyone else has put in there. And that's why it's called a sealed second bid price auction. We'll get to the second bid in a second. But It's sealed because I'm not basing my bid necessarily off of anything that anyone else has said.
Right. So you can only bid once.
That's right. Now, if in the example of AdWords, that's not quite true. You're bidding over and over again. For any individual click, it's sort of like a one-shot auction. But of course, if I'm buying a whole block of ads, then I have a chance to bid many, many times. But yeah, you basically, you get one shot. So then the way this auction works is the person who bids the most wins, just like in a regular English auction. But they pay the price that is bid by the second highest bidder. So that's why it's called a sealed second price auction.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that feels a little strange.
Yeah, so this is not as weird as it sounds, actually. It turns out that asymptotically, the Vickery auction, it's also sometimes called a Vickery auction because of the economist who wrote one of the important papers about this in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And I will call it a Vickery auction because it's easier to say than sealed second price bid auction.
Right.
So a Vickery auction and English auction actually give you the same result if everyone is sort of behaving themselves in an English auction. So what I mean by that is, if I'm in an English auction situation where people are willing to bid up to their true value, where there's no bid sniping going on, where there's no sort of weird gamesmanship sort of thing, the person who wins an English auction will still be the person who has the highest overall bid, right? So let's imagine that you and I are going back and forth again over how much we're willing to pay for a podcast microphone.
Right.
And I'm willing to go to $90 and you're willing to go to $100, right? And so at $89, we're both in. At $90, I'm at my limit. And if we stop right now, then if I have the most recent bin, then I've won. But you're willing to pay $91. In fact, you're willing to pay $100. And so you're going to bid 91. So at this point, I drop out and you've won the microphone at $91. So what you're paying is basically my bid, or my bid plus a small premium, even though you're willing to go up much higher. So the price that you get at the end still does end up being basically the same. Again, if everyone in the English auction is behaving in rational manners.
Got it. So if you had, let's say, 100 people bidding for this podcast microphone, and 2 people went just totally nuts and bid up to like $1,000 or something, then because they were competing, the price would actually go that high. But if there was only one crazy person and everyone was willing to go up to $100, and that one crazy person could have paid $1,000, but in an English auction would only end up paying $100 or so, they should get it for that price rather than their actual highest limit. And this incentivizes people to actually put their highest limit instead of trying to bluff their way through it.
Put their highest limit in the Vickrey auction?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the thing about a Vickrey auction, is that I have an incentive to actually bid my true value. Because think about it this way. If I win, then let's suppose that this podcast microphone is worth $100 to me. And if I win, then I get it for $90. Then sort of the amount that I've won in that auction is $10, right? Because it's the difference between what I think it's worth and what I've actually paid for it. So I'm coming I'm coming out $10 on top. If I'm one of the people who loses the auction, then I'm still coming out okay. Like, I haven't won the microphone, but I also haven't ended up overpaying for it.
Right. So you don't get winner's curse because you're never going to pay higher than your actual true value.
That's right. So the things that can happen is I can win the auction and I get the item for less than what I was willing to pay for it. So that's awesome. Or I can lose the auction because I haven't bid enough. And in that case, I don't win anything, but I also don't lose anything. In this situation, I don't have any incentive to bid anything other than the actual number that I think it's worth. Because first of all, there's no gamesmanship in terms of trying to get you to like raise or lower your bid based on what that might do for me, because it's this sealed one-shot deal.
Right.
The second thing is that I can run up my bids to be super, super high, but it's not like that makes it necessarily more likely for me to win. So whether I bid $100 or $1,000, I still get the microphone for $90. The drawback to bidding $1,000 for my $100 microphone is that I might win, and then I'm potentially on the hook for whatever weird person thought that this microphone was worth $900. So now I'm paying $900 for a $100 microphone. So I don't want to be in that situation either. So what I should say is this is what I'm willing to pay for it. And then if I win, I'm going to get it for less than that. And if I lose, then I've avoided a situation where I would have had to overpay in order to end up winning the auction in the first place. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah. In fact, it seems like we've addressed the 3 problems that we identified with the English auction.
Yeah. And so sort of the economic way of saying this is that I was diving deep into the economics literature to try to understand this. And there's this thing in economics called a dominant strategy. So the idea is I'm in this sort of slightly adversarial situation, right? Like I'm trying to win this thing, and I have to come up with a way of responding to the things that you might do. And so you might have this whole way of trying to figure out gaming bids to try to get me to do weird things. And then I might have these other weird bids that I might do in response. And in general, there's, these are called strategies. Like if you do A, what am I going to do in response? Or if I do B, what are you going to do in response? And so these strategies have a way of playing off of each other. And in the literature, there's this thing called a dominant strategy. And the dominant strategy is, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to give me the best outcome that is generally possible in this situation. And so it doesn't matter what you do. I'm just always going to do, the thing that I'm going to do. And that's my dominant strategy. And that's not always possible. There isn't always a dominant strategy for certain situations because the thing that might work best for me might be dependent on something that you're doing. But in the Victory auction, this is something that's really nice about it, is that there is a dominant strategy. There's something that you should basically always going to give you the best outcome that you could have given the things that the resources that you have and the things that you want to get for them. And the dominant strategy is just to bid the true value of the item. And so that's really nice because then all the incentives are lining up, that the people who want the things the most are incentivized to bid the amount that they value them. They're the ones who end up winning the auctions. The people who lose the auctions aren't overpaying for the things that they're trying to get. And also that in general, people trust the auction in a way maybe that you wouldn't necessarily trust other kinds of situations. That in general, when I'm going into a Victory auction, I know that the other people that I'm bidding against have an incentive to actually bid their true value. And so I kind of don't have to worry about this mind games aspect of it as much as with other situations.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like an auction without the drama, which, for like a movie is probably a bad thing, right? But for something very pragmatic, like how are we going to auction off AdWords and ad space to a bunch of different businesses really quickly? Ben hits google.com, who's going to get that ad space? A Victory auction, I mean, you don't want something that's melodramatic and everything for that. You just want the very pragmatic version of it. And this seems to be exactly it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I want to add on for this particular case of the Google auction, because there are a couple tweaks that they made to this that I think are really brilliant. So Victory auctions, first of all, are used in a lot of contexts. So things like mineral rights actually are auctioned off by Victory auctions. One of the things that Google does that I think is really brilliant is that they don't just award based on the highest bid. So if I'm an advertiser, I buy a block of ad space, I'm saying for every click that I get, I'm willing to pay Google, whatever, $1. And so if this were Yahoo, so Yahoo uses a slightly simpler algorithm, or at least they did when all these papers were being written. So if I were Yahoo, if I bid $1 and you bid 75 cents, then I win the auction, I pay 75 cents, end of story. And so then every time somebody clicks on my ad, I pay 75 cents to Yahoo, and end of story. Fairly straightforward.
Wait, hey Katie.
Yeah.
Would the dollar actually win in that case? Because Yahoo wants more money? No,
because Yahoo also uses a second price auction.
Oh, okay.
Yep. What Google does is that the amount that goes into actually winning the auction is not just your bid, but it's your bid times an ad quality factor. So this is, imagine sort of the way that the Google algorithm works in general. And the idea is that it wants to serve up the links that are the most relevant. And it has this very complicated formula for trying to describe what that means. And so Google's pretty good at saying what's a high quality result. And so the thing that gets returned is going to be not just who's willing to pay the most money, but this convolution of who's willing to pay the most money and who has the best link that they're trying to direct you towards. And so if I am a podcast microphone advertiser and I decide that I want to buy ad space for hotels, I can bid a bunch of money, but I'm probably still not going to do super well in the auction because there's other places where if people are Googling for hotels, they don't want to see my podcast microphone page, right? They want to see a hotels page. And so the hotels advertisers, even though they might be bidding less money, are still going to actually win that auction because they're winning on the ad quality metric.
That's really brilliant. So Google is treating all of the different ads that are competing for that space almost in a similar way as they're treating their organic search results, which is they're letting them kind of fight it out based on the quality. And whoever eventually wins is determined both by whoever's willing to pay the most money, plus whoever's ad is most relevant to the search itself.
Yeah, so two important things then that happen as a result of this. So first is that thing that you were describing at the beginning of the last episode, which is where you were playing around with podcast microphone ads, data science, right?
Yeah, I searched for data science and I got 2 results, and then I refreshed just to see what the other ads I would be served would be. And I only got 1 result. And then I refreshed again and I got no ads served to me.
And so then the way that you were thinking about it a little bit was this might be a play on Google's part, that they don't want to just be sending me tons and tons of ads, because at some point that's kind of a turnoff and I leave
Right.
Google's service. And so Google in general has an incentive, not just to be serving me up the ad that makes the most money at any given point, but the thing that's going to keep me using Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second thing that is going on, though, with this formulation is that the general currency for how Google and Yahoo and other places like that, how they actually get paid, there's three sort of ways that you can think about this. If I'm an advertiser, I want to pay every time somebody makes a purchase, right? So let's say I'm, North Face. And so I want to serve up ads when people start searching for winter coats, but I only want to pay when somebody buys a winter coat, because that's when I, sort of have the money in hand. And for me as North Face, like that's the metric
That's
that I
the
want to be
goal.
using. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm Google, I'm pulling in a different direction. I want to be paid every time I serve up an ad, regardless of whether somebody clicks on it or not, or whether somebody buys it or not. I'm saying as Google, like, that's not my problem. I've done my end of this, this
Right.
transaction. Sort of
I showed the ad, I want my penny.
right. And so sort of the middle ground that it seems like the market has kind of converged on is Google gets paid every time somebody clicks on an ad. So maybe they buy a coat, maybe they don't, but North Face is also not in this situation where they're paying out lots of money when Google's serving up ads if nobody's ever, clicking on those ads. So
Right.
so cost per click is sort of this middle ground. And so if I'm Google, I have a big incentive to be serving up ads that people are going to click on. And so that's the
Right.
other aspect of this quality metric is it's not, if I'm Google, the amount of money that I make is not just about who's willing to pay me more money, but it's who's willing to pay me more money times how many people are willing to click on their ads. And so having an explicit term in the equation that says that you get a bonus if people are actually going to be clicking on your ads is a way of me like very directly optimizing for probably how much money I'm going to make, because I'm serving up the thing that, actually makes me money, which is the thing that people are going to click on.
That's also brilliant. That's fantastic. Linear Digressions is a Creative Commons endeavor, which means you can share or use it any way you like. Just tell them we said hi. To find out more about this or any other episode of Linear Digressions, go to lineardigressions.com. And if you like this podcast, go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes so other people get to listen to this content too. You can always get in touch with either of us. Our emails are ben@lineardigressions.com and katie@lineardigressions.com in case you have comments or suggestions for future shows. You can tweet us at lindigressions. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.